I love Batman and Robin, and I'm not gonna be afraid to admit it. As campy and corny as this movie is, I absolutely loved it, not only growing up, but I still love it to this day, but not for the reasons you may think. I don't think it was a particularly well done movie, nor do I think it was a particularly good Batman story. Yet, I still found it extremely fun and just amazing. It reminded me of Saturday morning cartoons, and I think that is important, especially in today's age of hyper serious Batman. I mean, just hear some of these puns.
In this universe, there's only one absolute. Everything freezes.
From the completely nonsensical take on Bane, to which the character is nothing more than a bumbling dunderhead who can't even function properly, to Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy, who I'll get to later in this video, I just think this movie was exceptionally dumb fun. I know when it was released, it was panned critically because the previous movies that had followed it were so serious. They were amazing Batman stories set in realistic and more serious takes on Gotham. And then this movie comes on and bursts onto the scene. Bright neon colors, an entire cast of huge villains that are larger than life and don't quite make any sort of sense comparatively to their comic book counterparts. It genuinely felt like a huge departure from the more serious and grounded Batman. I mean, the movie begins with Batman quite literally fighting a bunch of dudes who look like hockey players while skating around on hockey skates with what is supposed to be Nightwing, I guess, in this movie. So it is definitely quite a departure, but I feel like it was welcome, especially nowadays. We don't get to see this version of unseriousness, especially with a character like Batman. We don't really get to have this campy, fun sort of feel that made Saturday morning cartoons and comic books so much fun for me when I was a kid. And I mean, Mr. Freeze's lines in this movie are just absolutely gold.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
And let's take a second to talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger's Freeze. The dude is absolutely batshit insane. He is nothing like a regular Mr. Freeze by any sort of means or metrics. Not only does his suit run on diamonds, but that's his entire motivation throughout the entire movie. All he cares about is getting diamonds. Dude exists in a snow cone ice cream factory, of which he gets his subordinates to dance for him and dress up as different characters while he stands in his ice-filled palace. Nora does exist in this movie, but she honestly felt so shoehorned in because this version of Mr. Freeze is far, far closer to his original appearance, in which he was nothing more than a petty jewel thief, as comparatively to the one most people are familiar with that was popularized by Batman the Animated Series. Oh yeah, and this Mr. Freeze smokes, because why not? Again, this movie is Saturday morning cartoon campy, and I love it so much. I mean, I remember watching this movie on VHS back in the day. Yes, VHS tapes. That's how I watched this movie originally. I watched this movie so much to the point that I actually broke my grandparents' VHS tape of this movie. I remember they had these collectible cups that they had gotten from McDonald's, and I used to always pick the Nightwing one because I absolutely loved Chris O'Donnell's portrayal in this movie when I was a kid. To me, this was my fun reprieve from the more serious Batman comics or the more serious Batman movies. I absolutely loved this movie. I loved it so much that my grandparents, as a gag gift, because they know how quote-unquote terrible it is, they got me the movie when it was re-released in 4K. And of course, I still continued to watch it simply because I enjoy it. I watch this movie probably once a year because it just means something to me. It was one of the first Batman movies I had watched, and it was an introduction to characters like Bane. Yes, this movie was my introduction to Bane, even though I find this version of Bane to be one of the worst possible. I mean, the dude is just absolutely horrific in this movie, but I still find it lovable and extremely enjoyable. Now, obviously, this movie benefits from the fact that not only were the previous movies before it, the last three, fairly serious, but the movies that have preceded it have been hyper serious. When you watch something like The Batman, I love that movie for complete opposite reasons that I love this one. It is a dramatic thriller. It is a serious look at Batman in the more modern and more real world, right? It's obviously not completely real. And it's amazing. Robert Pattinson spends a majority of his time on screen in that movie. We spend a lot of time in the mind of Batman, and it's truly amazing. But this movie is so much fun for the exact opposite. I mean, the characters even swap costumes in this movie simply for the fact that they wanted to sell more toys and no other reason. Hell, a lot of the stuff that goes on in this movie is simply just gimmicks for brand new toys. Whether it's Nightwing having his own motorcycle, Batman having his new rendition of the Batmobile, the new sonars, like freeze-proof suits that they wear at the end of the movie, that's all for toys and marketing. And it's just this little level of campiness that genuinely made me enjoy this so much. Do I even need to bring up the scene where Batman whips out a literal Bat credit card from his Bat utility belt? It's just so goofy.
7 million. Never leave the cave without it.
And that leads me into Uma Thurman's version of Poison Ivy. Honestly, great casting, and I felt like she put a lot into this role, a lot more than the script that she was given, because it was just not great. I don't think this script was good at all, and it doesn't help that some of the acting, specifically by George Clooney, was not great. Like, George Clooney in some of the most emotional scenes in the movie is extremely deadpan and just doesn't seem to care at all. It's like he can't emote in this movie, which is crazy because I've seen George Clooney have good performances, just not in this movie. So I thought Uma Thurman brought a level of campiness that felt proper, but also brought a level of seriousness that made the movie far more enjoyable, especially in scenes like this, where she's literally being paraded around as a goddess. Yeah, this totally did not do irreparable damage to me as a child, and there is absolutely zero way that this is the reason the VHS tape was broken, because that would never, ever happen in a million years.
Living in the shadow of the big bad bat. You don't need him. You're the star. I can see it now. Your own big, bright signal in the sky. Let me guide you.
You're a liar, such a good girl.
No, just no. She is not getting an edit. My parents watch these videos now. Okay, we can't be doing this shit anymore. But in all seriousness though, if there is one thing I do really want to highlight from this movie outside of its fun campiness that I think is a refreshing take on Batman, especially in his current climate, even if it wasn't viewed as so previously, is just how great Chris O'Donnell's performance was, not only in this movie, but also in Batman Forever. Over those past two movies, Chris O'Donnell, I feel like, was bringing the strongest performance in both of these movies, despite not having a coherent Batman, nor a coherent script, or coherent director even. Chris O'Donnell still, I felt, brought his A game to trying to bring Dick Grayson's Robin to life. Even though I feel he would have been far better suited to Jason Todd's Robin, they gave him the role of Dick Grayson's. And I felt like he played it particularly well, especially given the scripts he was given, which were not the best. We all know this by this point, but I think his performance was great, and I wish we could have gotten more out of him in a truly better setting. As much as I love this movie, I do recognize that it's not perfect, and it is far from great, and that it would require a better writer and a better director. But if anybody lives up to the absolute campiness of this movie, it's George Clooney. I mean, the dude literally looks like he's there just to get a check, and I think it's part of what makes his performance as Batman extra humorous, because his performance in this movie is just genuinely hilarious. dude pretty much just does not seem like he wants to be there. And in one of the most emotionally charged scenes of the movie, or at least what's supposed to be, while Chris O'Donnell, I feel, is acting his ass off, George Clooney just can't make anything other than a deadpan facial expression, and it makes the entire interaction extremely hilarious.
Is that what it is, Bruce? I'm under some kind of magic spell?
She wants to kill you, dick.
You would say anything to keep her away from me, wouldn't you? To keep her for yourself.
You once said to me that being part of a team means trusting your partner and sometimes counting on someone else is the only way to win. You remember that?
Yeah, one of the most emotionally charged scenes, and George Clooney just kind of is there, not really emoting much with his voice nor his face. But again, to me it adds to the campy charm of this movie. Maybe I look back on this movie with rose-tinted glasses, but to me, it truly reminds me of something like the Batman the Brave and the Bold TV show. Now, while I'd argue that show is far better written, I would also go as to say that it reminds me of reading those truly old Silver Age Batman comic books. I got my hands on a lot of them when I was a kid, especially because some of the Batman material I was reading, I really shouldn't have been reading. And it was always a nice reprieve for me to see Batman in a lighthearted, more happy story. And I feel like that's something we often miss, especially because Batman the Brave and the Bold isn't on air anymore. The show has been off for a long time. Even though he keeps appearing in movies, which I find amazing, we have a distinct lack of that campy, Silver Age feel for just about any comic book character at all nowadays, and I think that's really sad. Well, I believe that having a serious Batman is extremely important, and that I'm glad we see so much of serious Batman in today's day and age, I also see the extreme value in having a more campy Batman, having a more fun, down-to-earth version of the character who goes on super wacky adventures and fights comically evil Saturday morning cartoon villains with not a whole ton motivation other than I want diamonds and that seems cool. Or I just want to rule over men because one man screwed me over. Or Bane, who just goes with it for no reason other than I think he likes Poison Ivy in this movie. I figured it was really fun, and I really wanted to talk about this movie because I loved it. This video has been sitting on my idea board since I started talking about movies, and I wanted to wait until I felt good enough at making these videos to finally cover it and put this opinion out there, because I know this movie isn't popular and I know a lot of people don't like it, but I hope when you watch, a video like this, you might go back and look at the movie with a different set of lenses. You understand it is what it is, but I'm a firm believer that this is one of those it's so bad it's good type of movies. I'm starting to think I just have a problem when it comes to the underloved and underappreciated comic book adaptations of certain movies and characters. For example, I love The Amazing Spider-Man 1, not a perfect movie. I love Batman Arkham Origins, it's my favorite Arkham game of all time, and I want to make a video essay on it. But what's hilarious is it's considered unanimously to be one of the worst. I don't know what it is about me that gravitates towards these types of movies, but it is. And by movies, I just mean medium in general when it comes to underappreciated comic book things. Either way, I hope what you take out of this video is that Batman and Robin isn't nearly as bad as many people paint it to be, at least not in my eyes. In my eyes, it's at least a decent bit of fun that you can enjoy and laugh at, and then move on with your day. A bit of a reprieve from the overly serious Batman that we see a majority of today. And so, thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like, it helps out the channel a lot. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike and then leave a comment down below giving me some feedback as to why you didn't like it, because I believe constructive criticism is the best way for me to improve as a YouTuber and to make better content for all of you guys. If you want to subscribe, it's free, you could always unsub later. And finally, if you want to join my Patreon, there is a link in the description. It's about $1 a month, in which you'll get to see these videos early, unedited, along with access to my Discord, in which I'm trying to do weekly movie reviews where we'll all kind of sit down and watch movies together over Discord at least once a week, trying to aim for Thursdays specifically. And as well, you will also get shouted out at the end of each and every one of my videos if you are in the $5 or above tier. So now it's time for those lovely people to get their shout out. Without further ado, shout out to eSerbert13, shout out to Gabriel Lafonte, shout out to Transgears1, VideoGamer75, shout out to GoldenBoy420, Dakota Rawson, Donovan Gomez, and MCBomb27. You all are amazing, and all of you on Patreon are amazing, and I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day.